Welcome to our podcast. Today, drawing on the article Grant of a Supplication in the Quran, A Systems Thinking Perspective by Dr. Mehrdad and Dr. Asad Azemi, we'll explore how the concept of supplication, or dua, in the Quran can be understood through the lens of systems thinking. Could you start by explaining what systems thinking means in this context?
Systems thinking is about looking at how different components interact within a whole, rather than isolating each part. When applied to supplication in the Quran, it means seeing dua not just as a single event, but as part of a larger, interconnected spiritual system, much like how the different organs in a body work together for overall health.
That analogy really helps clarify the idea. So, in this systems perspective, what are the main elements and interconnections within the supplication process?
The primary elements are the supplicant, the act of supplication itself, and Allah's attention or response. The interconnections are the rules or feedbacks, such as sincerity, consistency, and alignment with Quranic guidance that govern how supplications move through the system. Importantly, supplication is a subsystem within prayer, which itself is nested within the broader Islamic system of monotheism.
So, supplication is not isolated, it's embedded within worship and belief, each with their own structure and purpose. As we move forward, could you discuss how the Quran frames the initial connection between a supplicant and divine attention? Let's delve deeper into the first feedback loop. We often hear that every supplication is heard, but not all are granted. How does the Quran distinguish between being heard and being granted, and what are the criteria that move a supplication forward in the system?
A key distinction in Quranic terminology is between attention that Allah hears every supplication and granting, which is conditional. For a supplication to progress, it must be genuine and Quranically valid. This means the request should not conflict with divine wisdom or knowledge, and it must be free from haste or ignorance, as highlighted by verses warning against hasty or uninformed requests.
That raises the question, what defines a genuine supplication? Is sincerity alone enough, or are there further requirements?
Genuineness, as the Quran describes, involves two main aspects. First, the supplication must be persistent, not a fleeting, desperate plea, but a sustained connection, as seen in the story of Prophet Jacob praying for his sons over 2 decades. Second, sincerity is crucial. The supplicant must truly believe that only Allah can grant the request, with no reliance on intermediaries or ulterior motives.
It seems then that both emotional commitment and spiritual alignment are vital. What happens if these conditions aren't met?
If the supplication is insincere or inconsistent, it may be filtered out at this stage, much like quality control in a manufacturing process. However, even those struggling with sincerity can grow. The Quran suggests that everyone has the innate capacity for genuine supplication, though maintaining it over time, especially without hardship, is more challenging.
Let's transition to the next stage. Once a supplication is deemed genuine, what determines whether it is granted? I've read that both personal growth and external factors play roles here. Can you elaborate on how these act as activation energies in the system?
Certainly. Think of granting a supplication as a chemical reaction. It requires the right conditions. The activation energy refers to the supplicant's spiritual maturity. The Quran often ties the acceptance of dua to the growth or purification of the soul. For example, the story of Prophet Jonah illustrates how self-improvement was necessary before his prayer was answered.
That's fascinating. But what about the external environment, the circumstances outside the supplicant's control? How does the system account for those?
External factors are like variables in a complex equation. The Quran describes Allah creating or modifying conditions so that events align for the supplication to be fulfilled. For instance, Allah provided for believers from where they did not expect, showing that synchronizing external factors is part of the divine response.
So, both internal development and external alignment must reach a threshold before the supplication can be granted. Are there real-world analogies for this dual barrier system?
Absolutely. Consider a student aiming for graduation. They must both complete their coursework, personal growth, and fulfill administrative requirements, external factors. Only when both are satisfied does the system grant the diploma, just as both barriers must be overcome for a supplication to be fulfilled.
Now, let's explore how feedback loops and delays operate in this system. How do personal growth and external factors interact dynamically over time? And why might some supplications be granted in stages rather than all at once?
In systems thinking, feedback loops are essential for regulation. The Quran hints at both balancing and reinforcing feedbacks. Balancing loops ensure that as the supplicant grows, external factors are adjusted to match, often resulting in time delays. For example, Moses' prayer for Pharaoh's downfall was granted, but its fulfillment awaited the right external conditions.
So, the system doesn't always respond instantly, even if all criteria are met. How does this incremental granting serve the supplicant's growth?
Incremental granting is like advancing through levels in a video game. Each small victory both rewards the player and prepares them for greater challenges. The Quran states, "He gave you from all you asked of him," suggesting that partial answers act as encouragement for further spiritual development, creating a reinforcing loop of trust and growth.
That's a powerful analogy. Could premature reactions or impatience disrupt this process?
Yes, impatience can destabilize the process, much like overcorrecting in a feedback system leads to oscillations. The Quran repeatedly counsels persistent sabr, emphasizing that true transformation and fulfillment require time, practice, and resilience. In this sense, delays are not denials, they're opportunities for deeper maturation and alignment.
In closing, this systems model not only clarifies why some supplications are delayed or granted in parts, but also offers a holistic, educational roadmap for spiritual development. Thank you for guiding us through this fascinating intersection of system science and Quranic wisdom.